presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Jake Asman.
Let's continue the conversation about the potential quarterback controversy going on in New York, and we go out to the progressive guest line right now. We bring on Jake Brown, who is the co-host of Gangs All Here, a New York Jets podcast through the New York Post, and Jake is kind enough to join us here on the show on a Saturday. Jake, appreciate the time. How are you?
Jake, only for you would I be in the back room of Mulcahy's Wanta at the Queens Baseball Convention doing this interview right now in a storage room that smells a little funky, some jackets, but for you, I'm doing it. And we're actually, you're a Long Island guy. There's a tornado warning here, which never happens. So it's a little scary.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, Jake. I was, reading my group chat right before this segment, excuse me. And my text messages from my friends on Long Island were tornado warning and rain. And stay safe, man. I appreciate you making the time to do this.
Yeah, I mean, this could be the last interview of me on planet Earth. So let's go out on top. You welcome me in with whatever you like, which would be one of my walk-up anthems. So I appreciate that.
There you go. All right. So as far as the Jets and the Bills tomorrow, Jake, by now everyone's aware Mike White will make the start. What do you make of the decision to go with White? And what are you expecting from Mike White against this Buffalo Bills defense tomorrow?
That would be Mike effing White. Get it right. It was a no-brainer, Jake. If he was healthy enough, he had to start. I mean, you already saw one great game, and you saw a pretty good quarter from him before he got hurt. They had to go with Mike White. Zach Wilson's just getting back on his feet, needs another week of practice. So, we'll see. I think it's going to be week by week now at this point. Like, if Mike White lights it up and they beat the Bills, you have to start him against the Dolphins, especially a home game. It's a crazy turn of events where the fans are more excited to see Mike White in a home game. Tickets sell more for Mike White than when Zach Wilson started. It's alarming because that's your first pick, your first round pick, but whoever's winning your games, you got to put him out there. So I say it's the right move to ride Mike White and see how long this party lasts. See if he could keep it going. But there's a lot of, I guess there's not a lot of pressure on him, but there's also pressure because if he does play crappy, then you have to go back to Zach Wilson, I guess.
Through 6 games, obviously Zach Wilson's had some good. He's had a lot of bad. He's looked like your typical rookie quarterback. Do you think though, Jake, and I've talked about this a lot, do you think that he could benefit from sitting out these 3 games and just seeing how this offense is being run through 2 different quarterbacks and just seeing how LaFleur's called the game and how, this offense has actually really worked when you play within the structure of it?
Yeah, I think it's a big benefit, and I think it's something they should have considered before the season. You had the Joe Flacco option. He got more money to go to Philly, but Flacco probably should have started the first few games and then go to Zach Wilson. Now he's seeing that Mike Wyatt, this 5th-round pick, that nobody is outplaying him, and if that doesn't motivate him, what will? This is a guy who's been handed the keys to the castle, getting a huge contract, and in second pick. He's been humbled a bit here. He's been humbled by a guy that, was a practice squad guy, not on the roster, being cut by different teams. So if this doesn't energize him, nothing will. I think they made a mistake, and we've all agreed upon it. They didn't get a veteran quarterback, whether it's Flacco or anyone else. So now this needs to be the kick in the rear end for him. We saw signs, we saw shades, we saw the Titans game. The offense is the same offense that they had when he was at quarterback that Mike White is making look so much better. So I would hope this is something that ignites him and inspires him to get going here.
Jake Brown joining us here. He is the co-host of the Gangs All Here podcast with the New York Post covering the New York Jets. Jake, what did you make of the comments from Zach Wilson at his press conference the other day? He talked about how there's really, no controversy between him and Mike White, that they're really good friends, and that, Zach agrees that, maybe getting a chance to watch this offense and watch what Mike White does in it could be a really good thing for him. What did you make of all of Zach Wilson's comments from the other day?
Well, I think he means it right now, but Jake, in 3 weeks, if Mike White's still the quarterback and Zach Wilson 100%, you're not going to see him be all good friends with Mike White. Look, obviously, they're friends, they're teammates. He also knows the situation. If Mike White still lights it up, he turns into trade bait. I don't know if the Jets are going to trade away their top pick and quarterback just because, he had a couple of bad games. He knows the real situation, and he's their guy. So he's going to let Mike do his thing, play well, give him a chance to maybe be a starter or a certified backup somewhere else. And he knows the work that this guy's put into it. Zach's just getting started. He's got a long career ahead of him. Mike White's been a journeyman these first couple of years, whatever, he's 25, 26. So he appreciates that this guy is a journeyman who worked his way up to this point. So I think he realizes, this is his job eventually. If it's not right now, it's fine. And listen, he's still getting paid good money to be the guy that watches him and cheers Mike White on. So he's not like Mike White where he's making whatever he's making, under $1 million, just over, 600,000. He's making $5+ million. He's got endorsements. He's the baby face of the city. So he knows his time is going to be back eventually.
What have you seen from this Jets offense, Jake, since Mike LaFleur went up and started calling plays from the coach's booth?
Well, it's almost like they turned up the Jets, no pun intended, when he was not the quarterback anymore. I mean, Mike White is quarterback, and the night before he calls him, he says, all right, we're going to turn it loose. And then they do reverses. They do flea flickers. They do all these things. Like, where were these play calls? First down, they were running up the middle with Michael Carter every time, and then Mike White's quarterback, and they're, throwing it deep and doing all these things. I'm like, finally. So maybe it took LaFleur a while to realize maybe I should stop babying Zach Wilson. And he hasn't been babying Mike White. The play calling's improved. They've done good things on the ground. The screen pass, I mean, one of the simplest plays in football that usually seems to be effective, not just in Madden, but in real life, is the screen. The Jets have been, murdered by the screen all season. Teams are abusing the Jets with the screen pass. It's such a simple play that they're finally doing. The reverses, you have athletes in guys like Davis and Mims and more. You have athletes who can have success on a reverse play, who might be able to throw the ball. You saw the New York special, the Philly, with Mike White catching that 2-point conversion. So they're finally doing things that they weren't doing before. It's fun to watch. Corey Davis will be back. If they can have Denzel Mims be a big part too, and you have Davis, Mims, Moore, Crowder. I mean, it's endless targets. You lose Croft, which is a killer red zone target. They've had no production at a tight end, it seems like, in a decade. But there's just so many targets that it's exciting to watch when they actually let the quarterback play and they open up the playbook. It's not as bad of an offense as it was the first couple of weeks.
Jake Brown is our guest. He is the co-host of the Gangs All Here podcast of the New York Post, where they discuss the Jets each and every week. Jake, looking at this Jets defense, I mean, 2 of the last 3 weeks, they've allowed over 500 yards of offense. It felt like after that New England game, they all said nothing like that will ever happen again. And, well, 2 weeks later, they give up over 500 yards to the Indianapolis Colts. What are the issues with the Jets defense right now, and what can Robert Saleh do to try and fix things?
Yeah, they're just not that good. We knew going into the season they did not have a lot of talent in this defense. We looked at their run stop, their defensive line as their strength, and then C.J. Mosley right behind him. But around that, I mean, you could call them Andy Samberg and the Lonely Island. They're on an island by themselves. The cornerbacks have completely outplayed who they are, and now they're getting exposed. You expected Saleh to coach up these young players, Eccles and Hall and all these guys on the outside. You expect them to coach them up, but these are young players who are inexperienced, who weren't high draft picks. They were back end of the draft, and you're seeing them struggle a little bit. So the defensive line's got to do better. They got to get more of a press against the quarterback. They got to stop the run a little bit more. You can't be giving up all these yards like they have to Donovan Taylor, Damian Harris, and all these guys. So I like to see the defensive line improve, but you're going to live with the pains of not having good linebackers outside of Mosley and having inexperienced cornerbacks. And they've also had injuries. Ashton Davis has been hurt. Now Marcus May is done for the season. So injuries have been a killer, but it's just a lot of inexperience. And also the coaching staff. You talked about LaFleur. This is like a rookie coaching staff across the board here. It's a lot of guys who don't have a ton of experience calling plays and working with young defenses, and there's going to be a lot of growing pains that go with it. And we've seen that over some of the losses this season, how bad the defense has been.
What are you expecting tomorrow? Do you think the Jets make this a real game against the Bills? Mike White continues to play well, or do you think it's kind of back down to earth for Mike White and the Jet fans that seemingly have anointed Mike White as the next Tom Brady?
Yeah, I mean, it might be the only game I go to. I'm considering going tomorrow just for Mike White. Like, I had no interest in really going. They just weren't a product that's worth making me make the trek to the swamps and then the way back. I mean, it is annoying getting there, especially when you don't have a car. Getting there is just annoying. The tailgate sometimes is the best part. And then you got to come home and do the podcast sometimes at night. And I'm like, all right, I'd rather watch Red Zone, but I might go because of Mike White. I think they're going to keep it close. Me and Kaz both said. Kaz actually said on the last show 24-23 Bills. I said 27-24 Bills. I think they're catching the Bills at a good time. They're a weird team right now. They're struggling. I also think it hurts them that they just lost to the Jaguars because it could have been called a trap game if they beat the Jaguars and then face the Jets. But now it's, kind of not a must win, but it's getting close to a must win because the Patriots are right on the tail. So I think the Jets will keep it close. I said 27-24. I'm going to ride with that. I think they got a chance to win, but I do think the Bills are just better. So I think if it's 27-24, Mike White is a big game. There should be no doubt that he at least gets that game against Miami next week.
Jake, really appreciate the time, man. Stay safe and avoid those tornadoes on Long Island, and we'll talk again soon.
All right, Jake, I'm going to go hide down in the basement now. Good talking to you, bro.
Jake Brown joining us. Once again, he is the co-host of the Gangs All Here Jets podcast of the New York Post. Him and Brian Costello do an excellent job with that podcast. Something that he said that I couldn't agree more with. If Mike White continues to play well, then yeah, it's his job. But it's not a bad thing to have, a shot in the arm for Zach Wilson, have some legitimate competition. I'll say what I've been saying this whole time. The Jets are not in a position to be upset to actually have maybe two capable starting quarterbacks. I'm not going to accept that. If Mike White's a dog, he's the guy. Let him keep balling out, and Zach doesn't get his job back. But competition's a great thing because now it's going to push Zach Wilson as well. And I think ultimately Wilson watching this offense, watching how it's run, sitting for 3 games, is the breath of fresh air, the reset that he needs to come back and play really well down the stretch. We'll continue on the other side of this break. Jake Asman with you till 6 p.m. Eastern time right here on affiliates nationwide on SportsMap Radio.
High Frequency with Kevin Zepak.